Hey guys, it's Zendrin. So, Sut 2 recently came out in Eternal, and one of the decks that I was looking forward to the most to make was one that used Hero of the People alongside Revenge. I figured that being able to give Hero of the People Revenge to just sort of increase the amount of Revenge units in your deck and give you more consistency with it, while also buffing it, seemed like it was going to be a good idea before we even really saw what kind of cards we'd be getting. And as it just so happens, a lot of the revenge cards we got in set 2 also have multiple keywords. All of the ones that we have in this deck have at least two. One of them has three. Alongside that, Argenport got some pretty interesting tools, as well as a cool new legendary that adds a lot more than you would think to this deck. It's something that really surprised me with how powerful it was, considering the things that we're not doing with it. So to take a look at the deck for starters, the first card obviously is Hero of the People. So for anybody who doesn't know, when you play a unit, Hero of the People gets that unit's battle skills, and Hero of the People has +1/+1 for each battle skill that she's gotten. This doesn't work for the same ability twice. For example, you can't give it lifesteal and then give it lifesteal again for +2/+2. It'll still just have +1/+1. However, this stacks with all kinds of different battle skills, so if you can give her a lot of different battle skills, you can make a pretty large Hero of the People. Alongside of this, we're going to be using quite a lot of units that have a lot of battle skills, obviously, because we want to be able to get Hero of the People strong by playing only one unit. We don't want to have to stack a whole bunch of units on the board just to make this an acceptable 3-drop. That's really the only thing Hero of the People was capable of being in the past, and that's specifically what we don't want to be doing, because it's not going to be good enough for constructed play. So what we need to do is make sure every time we play this, it either demands an answer or it does something unfair. Those are the only two acceptable outcomes here. We either want to do something unfair with it, or we want to force our opponent to remove it with hopefully the most premium removal they can. This can be a bit difficult because it's naturally a 1/1, but there are a couple of ways sort of around this. So at the moment here, this is sort of a fairly standard build of this deck. One thing that you'll notice immediately is I'm not playing Harsh Rule. Now, Harsh Rule is actually a tech card in this deck. It's not something I recommend you mainboard. The reason I recommend you don't mainboard this is because this deck has a lot of hate towards armory style decks and anything with low unit counts that focuses on Karya, relic weapons, Staff of Story, Sword of the Sky King, Die Show, anything like that. They're going to have a hard time dealing with this deck unless they draw their best answers. And having Harsh Rules in your hand is something that really doesn't help you there. And that's a matchup that we like being so confident in. It's very nice to be able to consistently know that you have the advantage in a matchup like that and not have to worry about a bad draw screwing you over. So, taking a look at the cards that we're going to be using. First, I just want to briefly go over the removal suite we have. So we have 4 Slay, 2 Vanquish, and 2 Suffocate. Now, if you're going to be running Harsh Rules, I recommend that you run 2 of them. And I recommend that you cut 1 Suffocate and 1 Valkyrie Enforcer. It sounds strange to cut Suffocate. Don't have that many problems against aggro unless it's Sky Crag because of their Aegises. So, generally adding that ability to Harsh Rule on 5 and having 2 of those makes it okay to not be running 2 Suffocates, because we've also got the 4 Slays. We've got the Stewards of the Past once we hit 4 to sort of block up the board. Now, going into the actual units that we're playing, the first one in our 2-drop slot is Piercing Grief. So you notice right away, this has 3 battle skills. All of these work with Hero of the People. So this card, it's got Revenge on it, so that's the most important keyword for Hero of the People, outside of Aegis, of course. And this is going to make your Hero of the People very difficult to deal with, because when it comes back, it's going to come back for free, and you're going to have a Revenge unit in your hand almost every time, so you're going to refresh the Revenge on Hero of the People. Now, this is something that you can feel fine playing this on 2 in a fair number of situations, even though it seems like something that you would want to hold until you have Hero of the People. If you expect a 3-mana 2/5, like a Felon Bloodcaster or a Combrate Healer, you want to play this down on 2. You want to get that damage to their face, because this is a deck where you have a lot of versatility in your battle plan, You're sort of going to be doing the same things or using the same tools to achieve these different plans, but it sort of diverges based on what you're going to be fighting here. And one thing you'll notice with some control matchups is playing this on 2 into playing Bartholo on 3 and constantly pinging their face over and over before they can get established is often a game-winning plan, even though it seems like it's something that it's not going to have that much of an impact. It really can. And then getting that draw out of the deck earlier alongside the 6, since when it goes back you get it for free, it's very nice. It gives you a nice bit of advantage. Now, obviously, this is also really nice because it's very cheap. You can play this on 5 with a hero of the people, and not only is this a cheap way to get out a very powerful unit on turn 5, this will also let your hero of the people attack right away with lifesteal. So you're going to be attacking with a 4/4 and a 3/1, both of which have lifesteal, out of the gate on turn 5. That's a life swing for 14 if you manage to hit their face with both of these units. That's massive. That's hard to deal with. If you hit that off, if you test an aggro deck and they don't have a torch and you pull this off, they're not going to be able to race you. They're going to end up getting to turn 6, activating Pyro Knight, and holding it back because they need to defend against your massive lifesteal units at this point. Now, giving Hero of the People revenge with this is something that it's kind of crazy how powerful Hero of the People can become. It can be something where even when they try to remove it, you force them to have both pieces of removal on the same turn, if not 3 pieces of removal on the same turn, in order to deal with your Hero of the People if they don't remove it immediately. And even just this little 2-drop is part of what makes that happen and what makes it such a big threat. The next up is Tranquil Scholar in our 2 slot. So just as a 2-mana 2/2, that's an okay body. He's going to block Oni Ronins, he's going to block Pyro Knights, not very efficiently most of the time, granted. But he's also going to block other things that have 2 health. He's going to pretty much just be a 2/2 when you need a 2/2, which is on turn 2. He's going to block your opponent's 2/2, he's going to block your opponent's 1/1. It's going to block their 2 and 1 drop. Sometimes it'll block their 3 drop even. I wouldn't bet on that. But, you know, you take what you can get. The real kicker here is this battle skill, and this isn't just because of Hero of the People. So this battle skill, it's part of why your game plan can change. If you play this and you get charge, and you give something else in your hand charge, and you play a Hero of the People, and then you give that charge as well, you might be erasing them, even if they're an aggro deck. That just might be how the game's going down. If you get Killer, you might be setting up some interesting scenarios with Killer, or you might just be using it to get something that you know they aren't going to block, or you might be using it to take down a quick draw unit, something like a Rakata Outlaw or a Vadius. Killer is very nice. You might get Deadly. It's going to let you trade out something big like Sandstorm Titan. You know, you play this on 2, they have their Initiate out, they play a Sandstorm Titan on 3, you're going to be able to go ahead and block it now. You go ahead and get double damage on this, it's going to be a 2-mana 4/2. You go ahead and get lifesteal on this, so it's going to block their 2 attack guy, their 2 health guy, and it's going to go ahead and heal you as well. And alongside all of this, it's giving a unit in your hand these abilities as well. So obviously, because it's random, the 2-drop with the skill, it's not fantastic. It seems like I'm going on about how great it seems to have a random skill, but really it's not that great because you can't guarantee any of those effects. But what really gets into the power levels that we want is when you give this to either Hero of the People or Makto. Now this is something I didn't see a lot of people considering with Tranquil Scholar, is that if you give something to Makto, he's going to go ahead and just keep that ability when his revenge procs. If you give Makto an Aegis, if you give Makto Overwhelm, if you give him double damage, you give him lifesteal, you give him anything even remotely valuable, which is basically any battle skill in the game that he doesn't already have, that's a significant buff to this creature. So Tranquil Scholar has been performing very well, definitely punches above his weight class in terms of what I expected out of him. And if you play this alongside Hero of the People, then you have even better synergy than just playing this and buffing a Hero of the People in your hand. So yes, you can play this buff Hero of the People, and no, it's not going to die to Vara's favor. It's not going to die to a killer one-attack unit or something like that, if that's what ends up happening. But if you play this alongside Hero while she's already on the board, not only is this unit going to get the skill, but Hero's going to get the skill, and a unit in your hand's going to get the skill. You're really just loading up on battle skills like this. So next up, we have Bartholo. So Bartholo is a lot more dangerous than he looks, and because of this, opponents tend to not put as much value onto removing him as he should. So 3 mana 2/2 Unblockable Aegis. His body is very, very weak in terms of the 2/2, but Unblockable Aegis is an extremely dangerous combination. If your opponent doesn't remove this, they're going to be taking 2 damage a turn. If you hit them 3 times with this, then oh well, whatever, you just spent 3 mana on an Obliterate that they had to remove for a card. You know, that seems fine to me. It slowed them down a turn as well. If they don't deal with this, it's just going to keep pinging their face all game. If they do deal with this, that's removal that they're not going to be able to spend on your other units. Your other units are also going to all start coming back because of revenge. If you ever draw an Emerald Monument and you get it onto this, it just becomes a massive threat. A 5/5 Unblockable Aegis is not something you can take lightly. That will just kill you in 5 turns, flat out. It needs to be removed twice. Now, if you ever play this alongside Hero of the People, that is a massive threat, because Hero of the People now needs to be removed twice alongside your Bartholo. Neither of these things can be allowed to live. You're basically guaranteeing that they spend 4 pieces of removal, or they spend an AoE and 2 pieces of removal, or 2 AoEs if you ever get these things alongside each other. That is such a large amount of answers from your opponent for such an early game situation. Just curving Hero of the People 3 into Bartholo on 4, that's got to be removed 4 times, or it's got to be double Harsh Ruled or double Lightning Stormed, or something has to happen to it, or your opponent's not going to be able to deal with it unless they can just kill you before you play any other units. If they don't deal with these units, you're either going to get bigger stuff, or you're going to play things that make Hero of the People bigger, while also having removal. Now, above this, we have our Valkyrie Enforcer. It's pretty obvious why this guy's in the deck. Silence is a very, very important keyword to have. There are units that we don't want around that the opponents are just not going to attack with. They're not going to attack with their Mystic Ascendant. They're just never going to do it because we're going to have a Steward on the board. They're not going to want to lose it. But we don't want them drawing cards, so we're going to silence it. They're going to play a Titan. We're going to have Makto on the board. We're going to want to swing in for 5. We're going to want to silence the Titan. They're going to have a 2/2 quick draw. We're going to have our 2/2 whatever on the board. We don't want this guy to die and not trade out their unit, so we're going to go ahead and silence that. You know, they're going to have something with an Aegis. We're going to have Slay or Suffocate or Vanquish in hand. We don't want to burn 2 removal pieces, so we're going to go ahead and pop the Aegis. Just everybody knows why Valkyrie Enforcer is good. It's just a fantastic card. It should be in probably any Argenport deck. And it has flying, so it also buffs Hero of the People, and it'll block flyers, it'll block Soulfire Drakes. It's just fantastic. Same deal, Steward of the Past, nice set 1 staple here. It's going to go ahead and hose Entomb strategies and Void-based strategies. It's also going to provide a nice body for blocking, and it's going to trade out things that are much, much bigger than it, just because they need to eventually at some point attack past your Steward. It's just a matter of when. They're either going to need to use a killer unit on it, or they're going to have to remove it, or they're going to have to slam a big dude into it. It's just a really, really fantastic card. It's something that, you know, you don't really need to think too hard about why it's in the deck. It's just good. Giving Hero of the People Deadly +1/+1 is okay. It's not really why this card's in the deck. Not every card needs to synergize with Hero. This deck performs fine if you don't draw Hero, because when you don't have Hero, then you've drawn your other bigger stuff. So we still want to have our traditional staples in here to make sure that we have the answers to the things we need and that we're doing the things we need to do. Going above here, we're getting back into the more Hero of the People revenge-oriented stuff. We've got Stonepowder Alchemist. Now, this card looks really underwhelming at first. It's a 4-mana 2/2, but being able to give your Hero of the People lifesteal and revenge is massive. If you ever do that, you can start just blocking with whatever. They're not going to be able to kill you in time before the stuff starts coming back, and you're going to be able to give your Hero of the People that already has lifesteal another copy of revenge plus whatever else. If you go ahead and get an Oathbreaker down, while you have a lifesteal guy like this, and your Hero of the People, which now has lifesteal, you're going to be able to attack and buff all of your lifesteal guys, deal more damage, gain more health. Everything about this card just sort of works with what we need at the 4 slot. Now, it's not very big, and that's another great reason why we need something like Steward of the Past in here. We can't only have 2/2s at turn 4, it's just not acceptable. We need something to also keep us alive traditionally, alongside the new version of keeping us alive, which is pinging the face with lifesteal with this guy, as well as just chump blocking or even getting an effective block out of him to get even more life, and having him give Hero of the People lifesteal. Which, if Hero of the People has Unblockable and Aegis, if you ever give that lifesteal, it's absolutely insane. Your opponent is not going to be able to race you, so that just completely negates one of their possible plans. And even if they can look at racing you, then you're just going to be able to hold this thing back. It's going to be massive, it's going to have an Aegis, and they're just going to have a tough time dealing with it. Now, this is a card where it seems just like you don't want to play a 4-mana 2/2, and like you don't want to have to sit there and wait for it to come back. What if you never get that revenge? But it's actually proven to be something that you really do want. You usually are going to see that revenge. It's usually going to be sooner than you expect it to be. You have a 10% chance of getting it again right away. You want to take a look at your chances to not have drawn it on a certain turn, rather than your chances for it to be in any given position. You're going to get this guy quicker than you think most of the time. He's going to keep you alive, and if you, for any reason, have a hero on the board, or you have one in hand and you're in 7 power, it just gets immediately out of control in terms of you gaining life, recovering whatever bad happened to you, and just putting Hero of the People back into the deck to come back out and just do it all over again. To sort of top things off, we have Inquisitor Makto. Again, we're seeing these revenge units that have multiple keywords. We've got the Lifesteal Revenge Charge here, which has that great turn 5 combo. We have the Lifesteal Revenge here, which is great curve of 3 into 4, or a combo on turn 7 there. Also a good curve 4 into 5 if you want to hold up a Protect for your Hero of the People, playing it on 4 instead of 3. And then we have Inquisitor Makto to sort of follow that up. You curve Hero of the People into Stonepowder Alchemist into Makto. If you ever do that, you've pretty much won the game instantly. They're going to need some ridiculous things to deal with it. Everything that you just played is going to come back if it gets harsh ruled. When you do, you're going to draw cards to replace it all. You're going to have lifesteal. You're going to be pinging their face. It's all going to be flying. You can just see how this really works well together to become a lot more than the sum of its parts. Something like this that demands a silence, or it never stops coming back, while also drawing you cards each time, is absolutely amazing. This is an instant 4 of in this deck. Giving revenge again to Hero of the People, and then also giving it that flying to be able to deal with flyers. It's another reason why we don't need things like Harsh Rule in this deck. Harsh Rule, again, is a tech card. You will want it at some times, but it's not something that is necessary. You're not going to notice that lack of Harsh Rule is the most common reason for losing. It's down there on the list, so it's not something you need to worry about too often. I would actually be pretty liberal in not including Harsh Rule on the list. At the other end on the top here, we have our Oathbreaker. So Oathbreaker is another one of those cards that looks a little bit underwhelming. Like, sure, it's usually, if you attack with it, it's a 5/5 lifesteal for 5, and that's great, and that seems good. But, you know, whatever, it could get, mortared, it could get hit with a torch and a Cloud Snake Harrier. This thing could just get killed, whatever, it's not going to be that great. But honestly, often, you just need a 5/5, or a 4/4 lifesteal for 5. And when you get that, it's going to let you get off whatever else you're going to get, and this thing's probably going to survive through whatever just happened. And you're going to be able to swing in and buff all of these other lifesteal units that you have. Piercing Grief, Stonepowder Alchemist, Hero of the People, Tranquil Scholar has a decent chance of giving something lifesteal. I noticed that it seems like the battle skills are not evenly weighted. I noticed very, very significant differences between the occurrence of some of these skills. The most notable one being double damage. Double damage seems like it is significantly less common than pretty much anything else. The ones that I see popping up most frequently would be Aegis and Warcry. Those two seem to happen quite a lot. Um, Now, I'm 100% sure, well, 99.9% sure that that's just like my small sample size of maybe only 60, 70 games with this deck, and I'm just noticing these abilities more because they seem more important at the time because they have a good target. But specifically, double damage is the one where this seems like it's a lot less common than the others, and I feel like Aegis is not as uncommon as you would expect it to be. So maybe it's evenly weighted with the others, and that just seems surprising. Now, being able to give lifesteal to things is something that you want to consider when you're going to have an Oathbreaker out, if you are going to have one out, and what to give lifesteal to. It can be kind of tempting to snap pick things with Tranquil Scholar, but you want to give it some thought based on the situation as to what unit's actually going to benefit the most from this. Sometimes you'll have a Makto in your hand, and you won't want to give a skill because you're simply not going to get Makto out in time for it to be relevant. And lifesteal is actually a good example of this. There are times where you simply need to get that lifesteal unit to be your Steward of the Past, and because you need to heal or you're going to die, even if you have Makto in your hand, and sometimes even if you were going to play him on time, there are times where you need to think based on the current match, the current situation, what is actually going to be best, rather than snap picking based on what would theoretically be best, just like in a vacuum there. So, with that out of the way, that's pretty much the deck. I didn't really go over Protect, but this is kind of self-explanatory. It's going to protect anything that you have from removal and silence, and it's also going to incidentally buff our Hero of the People, which is handy because this way it won't die to a Vara's favor or anything like that. Another thing is Protect can blow your opponent out when they try and torch you when they attack the Rakano Outlaw into something with 5 attack. So that is another thing that you can watch out for. If they are showing that they're going to do something like that, you can easily use Protect to reverse a blowout and put yourself into a much better situation. So that's kind of how the deck works. It runs a fairly solid amount of power here. We're running 27 plus 3 plus 2. I've tried 3 Varas, 2 Seek, but you really need to be carving out with your second green on 3. With Bartholo and Valkyrie Enforcer, you need to be able to get these out whenever they're in your hand on turn 3. It's not ever acceptable to not have it, and you need to be able to follow that up with green, green, purple, purple from Makto and your Oathbreaker. There's no point where you're ever gonna be happy knowing that you have that extra Vara's favor and you're screwed on your second green. So it's not something where you want to take that risk. You can mess with the power base on this with things like Inspire and whatnot. I feel like the cards in this are all cards I want, and we're already looking at teching things, so I don't feel like we want to thin a deck like this with a card like Inspire, so I personally wouldn't run it. Maybe if you're doing a different version of this, more focused on the Bartholo Aegis Unblockable thing, with like Hammers of Might and maybe Paladin's Oathbook, then that could be something to look into. So that was a little bit long-winded, but it's pretty much the deck, so we can take a look at how it plays and get into some games here.